So welcome to my interview. This is the first Mindfoolz inaugural chat that I'm going to have. So, who are you, Rynn?
Oh, good God.
That's where we start. Who are you in a minute or less?
Who am I?
Yeah. Okay, how would you define yourself for people watching this?
So what do I do? What do I offer? I just like to prattle. I am a spiritual teacher, and I will talk. My platform is that I will talk about literally anything you ask me about. And my background is varied. It's quite academic, and I have history in a lot of different studies, both physiology, psychology. I have a PhD in parapsychology, so I look at the intricacies of the alternative way that the mind and the experience works. And my history is in studying ancient religions and mystery teachings. And so I kind of pull from a lot of different directions to answer whatever I'm asked.
Does my hair look okay?
I think it's cute.
It's working for now.
It's not doing the weird thing anymore.
Okay. So, I've been thinking a lot about where to kick off this conversation.
Okay.
And I think just speaking to where we presently are is going to be a good topic to discuss because it's front and center right now. But before we get to the present, it's also worth mentioning where we were coming from before this. And so leading up to this point where we've now found ourselves in the coronavirus, the culture, the human spirit, the human energy was in a certain pocket of space. How would you describe people leading into the coronavirus?
Like the prevalent first world consciousness?
Yes. What was contributing to what we're experiencing right now?
The biggest thing for first world culture is consumption, unmitigated consumption, and change that is not in any way stabilized or governed. It can only become volatile when things are not left to integrate and to become a solid foundation to build on. Then eventually everything just gets too hot, too fast, too high, and it cannot stand. And so from a sociological perspective, that's kind of what was happening, is rapid expansion without the integration of any sort of foundation for things to be standing on. So you have one sect of popular culture that is all about go, 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 go. What can we develop? Where can we push things? Where can we push the boundaries? We just want more and more and more. We want different. And then another sect of society that's going, no, we want to change everything. We don't like the trajectory you're on. We don't like the way that the world looks right now. We want it to totally rewrite and start over. And so you have those two competing factions pushing the boundaries of everything. One's pushing the boundaries of what are we capable of, how much ground can we cover, and the other one pushing the boundaries or less pushing boundaries, more pushing buttons, and looking for, okay, what can we do instead? And without those two streams working together or integrating in any way, then they actually pit against one another. Especially when the faction that's saying, hey, we need to do a full system restart and go in a different direction, one of their foundations is that the old system needs to die. And so they're challenging the little bit of foundation that there was, and that doesn't work. It never works. The only thing we can do is build on what is solid. And so you can go back to the last solid space and you can take a new direction, but you have to start from a solid foundation.
So what would be, well, two questions. What was fueling the first group of people that are more on the go-go's, more on the consumptive side? What was fueling them? What was fueling the other side? And what is some of the solid ground that we've been standing on that we're going to have to rely upon going forward?
The answer to both of the first two of those three questions is frustration. And they were all guided by frustration or fueled by it.
Insecurity?
Yes, but that's more a personal thing than like if you're looking at from a sociological perspective, you're looking at the culture as a single entity, then it's not about insecurity. The individuals are definitely motivated by insecurity a lot of the time. Sometimes it's actually by bravado and not insecurity at all. There are some people who are not insecure at all and they just really like to push the boundaries, but they're supposed to. But the only way that that works is if there's a foundation of support that is helping integrate all of their incredible ideas. And so you've got thought leaders who are meant to push the boundaries and show you what you can't do yet, but then you're supposed to have a rung 2 or 3 down that has hundreds if not thousands of people who go, okay, how do we make that a thing and actually build the system that that stands on? But we weren't doing that. Instead, what we were doing was taking the awesome idea, implementing it as though we're good to go from that point, and then continuing to push without ever actually building it into a system that was stable. And so the motivation was more about frustration. It has been since the beginning of AD for sure, because it's all about, oh, we don't like the discomforts in life, so what can we innovate in order to take care of those discomforts? How can we make life easier? How can we make life smell better? How can we be cleaner? How can we be healthier? And unfortunately, the motivation is very rarely from an integrated perspective of we actually want to improve our quality, and more just about, I hate this thing. I don't want to do this thing. There's got to be a better way. But very rarely are people actually motivated by a positive progression. Now, group B presents themselves about being about the positive progression of what humans are capable of and what humans deserve. But if you actually look at what they're doing, it's not. It's usually very political, and it's usually more about, we hate that thing. It's not time to swim in the opposite direction of what we don't like. It's time to find the happy medium. It's time to find the solid middle ground. And so to answer the third part of your question, I haven't forgot that it was there, I can't think of one. I can't think of a solid ground that our society actually stands on for good reasons. We have some values that the majority hold and say that that's how they're making their decisions. But if you look at the decisions that people make based on those excuses, they do horrible things in the name of love. They do horrible things in the name of protecting their family. They do more damage than good when they look from that personal grapple of what's precious and important to me. So most New Agers' answer would be, love is a solid foundation. It's like, sure, show me one person who's living it in a good way. You might show me one, but I doubt you could show me 20. It makes me think of Abraham or Lot and Sodom and Gomorrah. God gave him a choice. It's like, if you can show me 20 men who are living in a good way, I won't destroy the city. Okay, well, what about 10? Will you do 10? Sure, show me 10. What about, and it went down and down and down until it's like, what about 1? If I found 1 quality man, will you save the city? It's like, yes, I will. Can I just take my family out of there first? Yeah. And that's how the story ends. He couldn't find 1 quality person in the city in order to save humanity. And essentially, I'm not saying that's where we stand right now, but it's a pretty close perspective, because the people who genuinely are the one you would be looking for to save Gomorrah, they have zero confidence in themselves. And they're not stepping up, and they're not speaking up, and they're not doing the thing that leads by example. You have people who really do love with their whole heart, who are nothing but taken advantage of and traumatized by it. So then you have someone who has a bleeding heart for service, who's traumatized and doesn't know how to do it in a good way. That's also not a good example to be living by. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of traditions that say like sin is inherent in man and things like that. And it's not necessarily that man has sinned, it's that man doesn't stand in a good place with himself very often. And only the individual and God itself can actually say whether someone is or not. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, that person will identify some deficiency, some insecurity, some falseness behind what they're doing. I don't think there are too many people who one of my favorite quotes is, "Here I stand, I can do no other." There aren't too many people who can genuinely say, I'm doing what I'm supposed to, and I'm doing it the best possible way that I can, and it's doing well for me. Like, it's actually honoring me.
So would you say leading into this, there was a lot of frustration? Mm-hmm. There was a bit of insecurity. There wasn't too much solid ground that we could trust to move forward from. Mm-hmm. So
what I was just talking about at the end, that is the solid ground that we should be starting from. Mm-hmm. We're just not living it.
Mm-hmm. So what we've now encountered with the coronavirus, is this part of a correction in order to kind of motivate or ignite or fuel us into going in the right direction? Or is it just a flu that just happens every now and then and we're just having to deal with it?
How do you want me to answer that question?
I want you to speak to...
You know how I work. I hear something and I'm like, oh, I can see 3 different ways this can go. Which one are you after?
I look at what we're experiencing right now as an opportunity.